Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Assembly Judiciary. Welcome to those here in Carson City, as well as those in Las Vegas, and anyone watching online through YouTube or our legislative YouTube or through Nellis. With that, Committee Secretary, please take the roll.
Assembly members Cole, Dahlia, Gonzalez, Gray, Hanson, Hardy, LaRue Hatch, Marzola, Moore, Nadeem, Ortlicker, Roth, Urick, Chair Miller.
Here, and please mark Assembly Member LaRue Hatch present when she arrives. Just a few reminders before we get started. Asking everyone to turn down their electronic devices, as I'm checking mine as well. Turn down your electronic devices. I will provide the phone number and the meeting ID right now for anyone wishing to either testify or make public comment today by the phone. The phone number is 888-475-4499, and today's meeting ID is 827-7152-3492. Again, we ask that anyone making public comment or testifying keep their comments to 2 minutes each. And also, before you speak, to make sure you state your name and spell it so we have it clear for the record. I will not be doing the agenda in order today, so the work session will not be until the end of today's meeting. So if you're here for work session, you can go back to your committee because it will not be until after the bill hearing. And with that, I think that's the only thing we need to address on the agenda. We have one bill today. I will be handing the gavel over to Vice Chair Marzola. So just give us a few minutes to get settled, and then we will begin.
The committee will now come back to order. I will now open up the hearing on Assembly Bill 416, which revises provisions concerning access to certain library materials in public schools. Chair Miller, you may begin when you're ready.
Thank you so much. Good morning, Vice Chair Marzola and members of Assembly Judiciary. For the record, I am Brittany Miller representing Assembly District 5, and I'm happy to present Assembly Bill 416. Assembly Bill 416 aims to protect students' rights to access information and prevent undue censorship in our schools, institutions of higher learning, and public libraries, while also providing protection for our educators and library workers. This bill has been a labor of love and democracy and liberty. In collaboration with the ACLU, Silver State Equality, the Prickly Pears, librarians, and a library board trustee who sadly is afraid to come forward for what she's already experienced and fear of further retribution. You will see that my co-presenters with me, I will introduce them again. I have Debbie Spears and Andre Wade down there in Las Vegas. The importance of this legislation cannot be overstated. In recent years, we have seen a troubling rise in attempts to ban books from school libraries across the country and here in Nevada. According to the American Library Association, there were 4,240 unique titles targeted for censorship, as well as 1,247 demands to censor library books, materials, and resources in 2023. Additionally, the ALA tracked 37 states that have brought forward 123 adverse censorship proposals, while 20 states are bringing forth right-to-read measures. Here in Nevada, we've seen our own censorship efforts. In June 2024, dozens of book ban advocates read excerpts to the Washoe County School Board in an attempt to get books they deemed inappropriate banned from school libraries. This group, which included some school board candidates, accused the board of permitting vulgarity to be at the fingertips of children. Between 2022 and 2024 school years, CCSD received 13 book challenges, none of them resulting in the removal of the books. Assembly Bill 416 strikes a careful balance between protecting students' rights and the public's rights to access information and ensure that decisions about library materials are made based on educational merit rather than political pressure or personal opinion or agenda. Since July 2021, PEN America has documented book bans in 42 states. And the top two reasons? Books featuring gay and transgender characters and race. In fact, PEN America documents that more than 1/3 of the books involved characters of color or themes of racism. So it's not about obscenity, like they say. And I will give you the legal definition of obscenity later. At this point, I would like to take us down to Las Vegas, where Andre Wade, the State Director for Silver State Equality, will give us a few brief remarks about the value of having these subjects accessible to the public.
Good morning, Vice Chair Marzola and members of the Judiciary Committee. As mentioned, my name is Andre Wade, ANDRE, and I'm the State Director for Silver State Equality, a statewide LGBTQ+ civil rights organization here in Nevada. And firstly, I want to thank Assemblymember Miller for bringing forth this bill. We are in support of AB 416 because we are concerned with the attempts to ban and reclassify books in various counties across Nevada that often have an LGBTQ+ theme, but also books that are written by and about Black and other people of color. Book banning is a form of censorship. Having access to books and library materials is a First Amendment right. The First Amendment is not just about free speech, but it's also about freedom of information. We want to protect the freedom of parents to decide what their children are allowed to read or not read. For a couple of years now, there have been attempts to ban, reclassify, or reshelve certain books dealing with race, gender, and relationships. In 2013, in Pahrump, library board members began discussing a policy that would impact LGBTQ+ books because of a complaint from one anonymous constituent. A few months later in August, when the library board was presented with research about what other jurisdictions similar to Pahrump were doing about children's books dealing with race, gender, and relationships, they found that out of 42 libraries across the country, only 6 shelved books after complaints. Because of this, the Pahrump Library Board did not remove or recategorize or change their policy. In addition to book ban attempts, there have been librarians that have been harmed and verbally attacked. Last year in Washoe County, a librarian was injured when a self-described First Amendment auditor tried to force his way into a drag queen story hour event at the North Vegas Library. On July 11th, the Workplace Violence Committee convened to address concerns about the incident and determined a pattern of escalating tension and safety risks for library staff over the past 2 years and decided to cancel the events. Also last year in Washoe County, there were people and groups outside of Nevada who lived thousands of miles away from Washoe County, helping to orchestrate book ban attempts and providing testimony at library meetings. These are people and groups who don't have a stake in Nevada, but they are in our state verbally attacking our librarians. Nationally, most of the challenge books are LGBTQ+ themed and or feature characters or people who are Black, Indigenous, or other people of color. There are times when books that are written by Black authors about Black people are seen as critical race theory. Therefore, in the minds of others, these books need to be banned. The fight against book ban attempts in Washoe County, a group called Freedom to Read started an online petition against book bans, and it garnered up to about 3,000 signatures to date. So let's be clear, no one wants books that are legally defined as obscene in our libraries, but we do want a variety of books written by diverse authors to be made available to those who are interested in reading them. We need to protect freedom of speech, our right to parents to choose what's in the best interest of their children, and protect library and school staff from threats of the actual violence and harassment simply for circulating books that comport with laws and policies. With that, I thank you for your time and support for this legislation.
Thank you. Now I'd like to introduce you to Debbie Steers, who is a librarian here in Washoe and currently the Collection Development Manager, as she shares some of her experience.
Good morning. I'm Debbie Steers, D-E-B-I, T as in Tom, E-A-R-S. Thank you so much for having me. In my 30-plus years of librarianship, defending the right of individuals to read, defending the rights of parents to determine what their children read has been the most rewarding and important work of my career. In Washoe County, we faced 27 book challenges in the fall of 2023, 2023, with 8 of those going on to appeal to our Library Board of Trustees in 2024. In those challenges, part of my responsibility is to read the works in their entirety, to be able to respond to the work as a whole. In doing so, I did not find stories of obscenity as the challengers alleged. Instead, what I found was stories of immigrant children trying to find how they fit with the American dream. Stories of young people grappling with their identity. The notion of libraries giving obscene materials to children, to anybody, is absurd. Obscenity is illegal across our country. Anything that courts rule as obscene is not available for sale. It is not available for us to purchase from any vendor, let alone make available on our library shelves. These coordinated attacks by political groups have taken up inordinate amounts of time, just reading the 27 books to be able to respond to them, and to look at what people are claiming is in these books. They cherry pick a few passages and claim that this is harming children. We need to preserve the rights of parents to determine for their own children, not for grand political theater by people who don't even have children in our schools or using our libraries. I thank you so much for taking up this measure, for protecting that First Amendment access for all Nevadans.
Thank you so much. With that, Vice Chair and members, I will go ahead and walk us through the sections of the bill. So the provisions of the bill, it prohibits school boards, charter governing bodies, library district, municipalities, and school employees or volunteers from limiting pupils' access to library materials. I should also state that this does include, it's based per the amendment, the conceptual amendment that was submitted. It allows school boards, charter school governing boards, and librarians to adopt rules or policies to limit access to library materials for reasonable time, place, and manner restrictions or preservation of safety and security. The policy cannot be based on the sex, race, national origin, religion, gender identity or expression, sexual orientation, physical or mental disability, or political affiliation of the subject, the author, or the intended audience. It permits individuals who live within the school district and have children that attend a particular school to petition the court in order for the removal of obscene materials, only if the court determines that the material is in fact obscene. Now, I understand there's been some opposition and some confusion and questions to why are we taking it to the courts. I know one of the larger school districts, they had created a school-based library media community committee made of a few teachers and parents and admin to review and determine the status of the book. However, the First Amendment is not about policy. It's about our state functioning to support the rights of its people. And these small cluster groups will lead to dramatic inconsistencies between building to building. Also, with that type of policy, there will be loopholes available for people who do try to work around or obstruct access to go through, as opposed to what's written in this bill. So instead, what we're using is the three-pronged Miller test that the U.S. Supreme Court has established for judges and juries to determine whether material is in fact obscene. if, one, it appeals to prudent interests based on community standards, it lacks serious literary, artistic, political, or scientific value, and it explicitly depicts sexual acts, excretory functions, sadism or masochism, or lewdly exhibits the genitals in a patently offensive way. That's the three-pronged Miller test. The bill also requires that school boards, charter school governing boards maintain a list of all library materials ordered to be removed from circulation in their prospective school libraries and share the list with employees involved in library material selection and purchasing, if in fact any books have been identified by the courts as obscene. The bill prohibits dismissing, disciplining, involuntarily transferring, fining, or imprisoning school or library employees for selecting or circulating materials that are in compliance with the law. The bill also makes it unlawful to use force, intimidation, or coercion to prevent pupils from accessing library materials or to compel school or library officials to violate the provisions of Section 2. This applies to on and off school and public library property. It's unlawful to disseminate personal or sensitive information of certain school or library officials or pupils without consent in retaliation for allowing access to library materials, if it's intended to promote criminal offenses likely to cause death, bodily harm, or stalking, or is done with the intent to cause harm and disregard for such potential consequences. If the dissemination would cause reasonable fear of death or actual death, bodily injury, or stalking of an individual or their close relatives. A person who violates this prohibition is guilty of a Category E felony. I will close with a quote from Deborah Caldwell Stone, who is the director of the American Libraries Association, Office of Intellectual Freedom. She says that librarians do closely follow obscenity laws. Her quote is, "Librarians are aware of these laws and do not collect illegal material. They may collect materials that some find controversial for themselves or their families, but we firmly believe that the decision about materials, what young people read, should be guided by their parents." We know there are multiple protection laws protecting minors from obscene material, and more coming as avenues grow, especially if we just think of the inception of the internet itself. But by enacting Assembly Bill 416, we can protect our students' intellectual freedoms and protect political and religious works of all persuasions, as well as scientific, historical, medical, and even fictional books. We can support and protect our dedicated educators and librarians and ensure that our school libraries remain places of learning, exploration, critical thinking, knowledge, wonder, and growth for all Nevadans. With that, I urge your support for Assembly Bill 416, and we are happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for bringing this very important bill. Before we get started and I take questions, I just want to give you a little bit of lay of the land today. I'm going to take all of the committee questions until they are completely done. Afterwards, I am going to limit testimony. We are going to do 30 minutes in support, 30 minutes in opposition, and 30 minutes in neutral, which means 10 minutes here in Carson City, 10 minutes in Las Vegas, and 10 minutes over the phone lines. And lastly, before I take questions, please remember, I understand people feel very passionately one way or the other when it comes to this bill, but I do expect courtesy and respect in all our interactions today. So with that, we will take our first question. Assemblymember Roth.
Thank you, Chair, or Vice Chair. Thank you, Chair. Thank you so much for the presentation. Thank you for bringing this bill. A lot of people don't know my father was a teacher for over 40 years, and when I was a kid, he was actually fired from a job in a very small town in California for having books and materials related to the Holocaust. as a teacher of high schoolers. So this bill is very personal to me, and I thank you for that. I just want to be very clear. This seems very simple to me. All this bill does is puts into statute from this state what we already follow and what the Supreme Court has already found to be the test regarding obscenities.
Brittany Miller for the record. Yes, Assembly Member.
Assemblymember Cole.
Thank you very much, Vice Chair. Thank you. So my question is on the Miller test, and I'm not super familiar with how it works and everything when it comes to the contemporary community standards. So I guess my question is, how does it work when it comes to libraries, specifically public school libraries? Is the community standard different for an elementary school versus a high school when they're coming up with, what the books would be? I would imagine that it would be different, but can you just explain that a little bit? Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Brittany Miller for the record. And that's an excellent question. The three-pronged Miller test, when we're talking about community standards, we are referring, here it is. We are referring, again, there were multiple Supreme Court cases that led to this, but we are referring to what the average person in the public would consider and deem. And of course, the average person does have different considerations for elementary school, junior high, high school, college, as well as general public libraries. Would you like to add to that?
Debbie Steers for the record. I will say that as I have searched through court documentation about what cases have courts determined that an item is obscene, I have only found cases where courts have struck down as unconstitutional the restriction of materials. Genderqueer in Virginia is the most recent example. That's a book that was challenged both in Washoe County Library and Washoe County School District. The courts consistently side on the side of First Amendment access, even when it is controversial content.
Brittany Miller for the record. I'd also like to add that schools also have additional layers that include academic standards, that include internal policies for the types of materials, whether instructional materials or not. So, and then of course, even things that pertain to the reading levels of children. So those three points in itself will make sure that there are separate materials in elementary school, junior high, and high school.
Assemblymember LaRue Hatch.
Thank you so much, Vice Chair, and thank you, Chair, for bringing this. As a teacher and a parent, I am fully supportive of our students accessing materials that will help them. I actually wanted to build on my colleague's question. I note that in the bill on page 3, it says the librarians can impose a reasonable restriction as to the time, place, and manner of accessing library materials. My daughter, at her elementary school, they only let the kindergarten and first graders check out Harry Potter 1 and 2, but they can't check out Harry Potter 5 and 6 because it's really scary for them. And so I would imagine they can still have those like age appropriate recommendations for children and for families, correct? We're not saying that my first grader is now going to read like high school level texts, right?
Right. Thank you for that, Brittany Miller for the record. Although there are some first graders reading high school level text, with this, what the bill prohibits is intentional, and again, different standards for school, intentional hiding, labeling, shelving, destroying library materials.
Yeah, so right, we still have discretion to advise and to shelve where it's appropriate. We can have a kids section, we can have an adult section, right? All of that still is going to exist. We're just not limiting based on these other non-obscene factors, right?
Brittany Miller for the record. Yes, that is correct. And as someone who also works in a school, I mean, the kids know where to go when they walk into the library, where the section is. And even though there's a major difference between a kindergartner and a fifth grader, still they know, where their reading levels are.
Committee members, any additional questions? I don't see any. So I'll give you a few minutes to move out of your seats. Actually, a few seconds. And we will start with testimony in support of Assembly Bill 416. We will start here in Carson City. Please remember to state and spell your name for the record. Also remember that you do have 2 minutes each. You may begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I am Brian Wallace, BRIANWALLACE, Vice President and an educator in Carson City with the Nevada State Education Association, who's been the voice of Nevada educators for 125 years in all 17 counties. NSCA supports AB 416 to protect student access to library materials, as well as protect our dedicated school librarians and library assistants. NSCA represents school librarians and library assistants who play a vital role in supporting our students, our teachers, and our entire school community. School libraries level the playing field by providing access to a broad range of literacy and information. As a history teacher, it is the school library that has allowed my students to access material that represents different perspectives, cultures, and ideas that foster inclusivity and inspires critical thinking. AB 416 has become necessary to safeguard these intellectual freedoms. Students should be able to access a wide range of ideas, perspectives, and information at their own schools. Restricting materials limits their ability to think critically and form their own opinions. As censorship efforts have targeted materials about marginalized communities, it is important for Nevada to respect and affirm diversity by ensuring a variety of cultures, experiences, and viewpoints are represented in the materials that are available. Students truly benefit from seeing themselves reflected in the materials and the books that they read. NSA asks for your support of AB 416. Thank you.
Good morning, Vice Chair Marzola and members of the committee. My name is Kayla Maese, spelled Kaylah. Last name is Maese. I'm a civil rights analyst at the ACLU of Nevada, and as Assemblymember Miller did mention, we were a part of the working group for this piece of legislation, which we were grateful for that opportunity, and we support AB 416 and encourage the committee to support as well. Thank you.
Good morning, Vice Chair and members of the Judiciary Committee. Thank you, Assemblymember Miller, for sponsoring this bill. My name is Bree Schmidt, BRISCHMIDT, speaking in support of AB 416. I'm a program associate with Silver State Equality, Nevada's statewide LGBTQ+ civil rights organization, but I am also a lifelong reader, a former teacher, and a self-professed library kid. Books offer a freedom of information that little else can. If Nevada wants to protect its artists, writers, librarians, students, parents, teachers, and others, protections like the ones provided in AB 416 are a necessity. In my discussions with public librarians, school librarians, students, and parents alike, one theme has rung true. These book bans and challenges have not served to protect children, but instead created an environment of fear, where students watch as book challengers claim that their very existence is obscene and does not deserve to be seen. No child should leave a library feeling unseen. AB 416 will help make sure every Nevadan, children included, have access to narratives that represent them and their lived experiences. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Brandon McDougall. That's MacDougall. I'm here to support the passage of this bill. I've got a few things to say. First, on fascism. Somehow, after putting a stop to fascist regimes during the Second World War, we've allowed fascism to emerge here in the United States. Book bans fit right into the fascist playbook and should never be part of our discourse, and a failure to pass this bill would be the first step on that dark path. Second, myself and my fellow veterans swore to uphold the Constitution. Last time I checked, the First Amendment was still valid, protecting speech whether or not a particular person disagrees with that speech. Finally, I'm the parent of a 4th grader and a 7th grader in the Carson City School District. I have full faith in our librarians, who are trained and paid to manage libraries in the schools. Access to all books open my kids' eyes to the diverse communities they live in. Access to all books help every kid learn that their voices matter, no matter their race, religion, or sexuality. Thank you for your time.
And thank you for your service.
Good morning, members of the Assembly. And for the record, my name is Summer Merrill, Summer like the season, Merrill, Merrill, and I am here from Yerington, Nevada. When I was in the 3rd grade, I read a book called Number the Stars by Lois Lowry, and it tells the story of a young girl who, along with the help of her family, helps her Jewish friend escape over the border from Nazi-occupied Denmark into Sweden. And it was the first time that I had seen someone like myself, a young girl, wrestling with her own fears, but choosing to be brave. And from there, I went on to read Anne of Green Gables and Little House on the Prairie, Ramona Quimby and the Babysitters Club. And I am so incredibly fortunate because the world is full of stories about girls, about women who look, who speak, who act exactly like me. And as I got older, my taste became more varied, and I craved stories about people who looked and acted and spoke differently than I did. And reading these stories allowed for me to connect with people in a way that reality couldn't. Through reading, I have learned that people tend to fear what we don't understand, and those who seek to limit what other people read, while sometimes well-intentioned, are often misguided. People fear new ideas. They fear change. They fear the loss of power and control, but most of all, they fear that they may become a product of what they read. I am here to tell you that I have read broadly and widely across generations and genres, and I am more sure of who I am and who I was than ever before. AB 416 never can and never will force you to read or your children to read something that you are opposed to. Rather, it will ensure that future generations of children will have the same opportunity that I had to discover themselves through literature. Everyone has a story to tell, and when we start to debate whose stories are worth preserving, in a sense, we are debating who is worth preserving. I hope that you will think about the stories that have made you who you are today and vote in favor of AB 416. Thank you.
Vice Chair, members of the committee, Jonathan Norman, NORMAN, Nevada Coalition of Legal Service Providers. We represent foster kids throughout the state, and libraries are a beacon for everyone, I think. And you know, if I have a choice of standing with librarians to say that, and parents to say that they can make good decisions for their kids, librarians can curate their the libraries and provide appropriate, age-appropriate books. That's the side I'm going to be on. I really loved the last two commenters. They had really touching testimony, and I think I would stand with those comments as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else in Carson City wishing to testify in support? I don't see anyone walking up. Is there anyone in Las Vegas wishing to testify in support of Assembly Bill 416? Broadcast, is there anyone on the line? Oh, I was really quick. We will go back to Las Vegas. Please remember to state and spell your name for the record. You may begin when you're ready.
Okay, good morning. My name is Malcolm Greer, and I strongly support 416 because it safeguards students' access to diverse library materials in our public schools. Libraries are essential places for exploring ideas and fostering critical thinking. 416 ensures that library materials remain accessible to students, protecting against arbitrary censorship. By supporting 416, we uphold intellectual freedom and ensure our students have the resources they need to become thoughtful, informed citizens. I respectfully urge you to pass this important legislation. Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the Assembly Judiciary Committee. My name is Linda Cavazos, Linda Cavazos, and although I hold the office of CCSD trustee, I am speaking today as an individual in support of AB 416. As a former educator in CCSD and UNLV, as a licensed mental health provider, and as the parent and grandparent of several children and grandchildren who have graduated from CCSD, I have had countless opportunities to actively engage with young people in all kinds of settings. Their unique and distinctive voices at various turns surprised, delighted, confused, and yes, sometimes even angered me. But all of them were so very important, whether they happened at home, in the classroom, or in a therapeutic setting, because they all enjoyed the same freedoms of speech, thought, and the freedom to read, with the last privilege being one that for many is largely provided by our school libraries, where wonderfully devised reading materials captivate, amaze, and enthrall students of all ages. All of our children should be able to see themselves in library books and to feel represented in the stories that they choose to read, not restricted and limited by another person's or group's standards and or biases. No person in a governing or school employee capacity, especially our trained library professionals, should ever be subjected to threats, coercion, or intimidation of any kind in an effort to influence the limiting of library materials access. This bill would make such actions a felony and would remove said individuals from shouldering that responsibility when existing law already provides proper legal process. Our First Amendment freedoms are for everyone, not just some, to enjoy, and our school libraries constantly open up new worlds for our students. I urge you to support and pass AB 416 so that the fear of subjective book bans is replaced by the absolute joy of reading for both our children and the adults who teach and empower and inspire them every single day. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else in Las Vegas wishing to testify in support? I don't see anyone. Broadcast, is there anyone on the line?
If you would like to testify in support of Assembly Bill 416, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Again, if you would like to testify in support of Assembly Bill 416, please press *9 now.
Vice Chair Marzola, members of the committee, thank you, Assemblywoman Miller, for bringing forward this bill. My name is Chandler Cooks, and I'm a strong supporter of AB 416 because what's at stake here is more than just books on a shelf. It's the soul of the public education system, the integrity of our intellectual freedom, and the safety of those who defend it. No student has been harmed by access to information, but countless students have been harmed by the absence of it. In an era of rising political aggression, where educators have faced online abuse, threats, and job loss, this protection is not just timely, it is essential. This bill does not say that all books belong on every shelf, but what it says is that no book should be removed simply because it makes someone uncomfortable, especially when that comfort is rooted in fear of difference, progress, or truth. The American Library Association found that students with access to diverse materials demonstrate higher critical thinking skills, stronger reader comprehension, and greater civic engagement. On the flip side, censorship creates a chilling effect, not just on students, but on teachers and librarians who fear retaliation for doing their jobs. We should be teaching students how to think, not what to think. We cannot prepare them for democracy by shielding them from complexity, and we can't champion critical thinking while criminalizing curiosity. This bill is responsible. It's not about indoctrination. It's about education. It doesn't force any child to read any book, but it preserves the right for every child to find themselves on a page. If we're serious about equity, if we're serious about education, then we must be serious about passing AB 416. Nevada should lead where others have faltered. Let us be the state that chooses freedom over fear, access over exclusion, and truth over silence. I urge you to support. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Broadcast, is there anyone else on the line?
Hi, good morning. This is Anna Binder individually. I'm calling in strong support of this bill because it defends intellectual freedom and ensures that access to books is not dictated by the personal beliefs of a vocal few. Right now, there is an illegitimate war against books, an effort by some to censor what other people's children can read. Parents have always had the right to guide their own child's reading, but that does not give them the right to restrict access for everyone. This bill makes it clear that public schools and libraries should not be subject to undue pressure, intimidation, or threats from those who want to ban books based on personal or political beliefs. We trust our librarians to build collections that reflect diverse perspectives, literary value, and the needs of all students. This bill ensures that they can continue doing so without fear. It also holds accountable those who engage in harassment or coercion to force censorship on our schools. I urge you to support this bill and take a stand for the freedom to read, learn, and explore ideas. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair, and to Chair Miller for bringing this forward. My name is Naseem Jamnia, Naseem Jamnia. I'm a traditionally published author calling to support AB 416. I'm also part of the steering committee for Freedom to Read Nevada and the Nevada chapter co-lead for Authors Against Book Bans, which has over 3,800 members nationwide. As an author, little is more devastating to our careers than attacks on our books. For those of us who write for kids, Being told our stories are inappropriate because they contain our truths is tantamount to being told we should not exist, which means the kids we were shouldn't have existed either, which means current kids who are like us don't deserve to see themselves in books. My friend and colleague Adib Khorram's debut young adult novel, Darius the Great Is Not Okay, is a multiple award-winning book that has been translated into over half a dozen languages and has also been banned. This book follows an Iranian-American teen who has clinical depression like his white American father. As a child to Iranian immigrants, I didn't see myself in a book until I was 21. I was a voracious reader and a library kid in inner city Chicago, yet never saw my autistic brother meaningfully on the page, nor my Persian heritage, nor even an immigrant background. In the 90s, my parents didn't know I could have clinical childhood depression. I think about what a book like Darius could have meant to a kid like me. Perhaps it would have contextualized my first suicidal ideation at 13, or self-harm throughout high school, or first suicide attempt at 20. Challenging and banning books because adults are uncomfortable with the multiplicity of life experiences they share does a disservice to kids and teens at best and actively harms them at worst. I urge you to protect books in our schools and libraries by passing AB 416. Thank you.
Hi, Candace Powell for the record. I'm calling in support of AB 416. I am a mother of 2 school-age children. My oldest daughter loves library. It's her favorite class at her elementary school. Speaking to her librarian at her school, a 25-year school librarian, I cannot imagine taking away her ability to do her job. I trust she knows how to do her job. She is one of the most dedicated people I've ever seen. I support AB 416 because librarians are already trained in making age-appropriate selections for books. Book bans have historically and consistently been on the wrong side of history. As a proud fourth-generation Nevadan, I cannot stand and see my state be on the wrong side of history. Book bans have no place in Nevada. Thank you.
Good morning, committee chair and members. My name is Luisa Benisano, for the record, LuizaBenisano. I'm the Campaigns and Community Engagement Manager for Planned Parenthood Votes Nevada and would like to ditto in support of AB 416. Thank you.
Follow with the last 3 digits, 313. Please press *6 to unmute your phone. You may begin.
Hello, my name is Ilya Arbitman, I-L-Y-A, last name A-R-B-A-T-M-A-N. I'm a resident of Reno, Nevada, and a bookstore owner. I help run one of the few independent bookstores in Northern Nevada. I'm also a member of the Freedom to Read Coalition. Libraries, both public and school, were always intended to be and must always remain places where different experiences and points of view coexist. People use libraries to access the incredible diversity of human thought and opinion, to see themselves reflected and to discover stories and ideas they can never encounter elsewhere. Library shelves will always be controversial. You can always find a book you vehemently disagree with, even a book that deeply offends you. Controversy is the point, after all, of information and knowledge, to challenge closed-mindedness and to constantly expand dialogue as we work together to build a better world. That's what the state legislature does. You hear differing opinions, discuss them, and make an informed decision with as much dialogue and information as possible at your disposal. Accusations of obscenity do have their proper place. Laws regarding obscene materials already exist, and they govern not just what libraries can stock on their shelves, but what books can be published in the first place. Obscene materials cannot, by the legal definition currently existing, be published and distributed, and would therefore have no way of appearing on a library shelf. It is vital that we adhere to this legal standard. Contemporary attempts at book bans target material that offends some and is deeply empowering and important to others. Material of this nature has always been and must always remain on library shelves. Allowing one group of people to dictate what everyone has access to defeats the purpose of libraries and turns them from institutions of learning into institutions of indoctrination. Protect everyone's freedom to read and our culture's ability to learn and grow. Controversy is inevitable. We need it to be a truly democratic society. Keep book bans out of public and school libraries. I strongly support AB 416. Thank you very much.
Hello, committee and chair. My name is Chanel Bessette, ChanelleBessette. I'm a concerned citizen and former library kid from Reno, Nevada, who is in strong support of AB 416. I'm calling in today as a passionate advocate for the freedom to read. Reading has always been a cornerstone of my life, expanding my horizons and shaping my understanding of the world. I firmly believe that it is our duty to protect this invaluable right and resist any attempts to impose viewpoint-based censorship. Book bans tell us we should hide the stories that don't align with our particular worldview. These bans stifle creative thinking and the very empathy that makes us human. As a society, we should foster open-mindedness and community-based thinking by encouraging a diversity of ideas, opinions, and stories. These censored stories often portray the real-life thoughts, beliefs, and experiences of marginalized groups, especially people of color, women, and members of the LGBTQ community. These stories are true and valid and meaningful and deserve to be read. I would much rather live in a democracy that errs on the side of literary freedom than one that submits to a vocal but misguided minority that seeks to repress our intellectual community. By supporting AB 416, we safeguard our intellectual freedom and empower future generations to explore, learn, and grow through the world of literature. Together, let's ensure that every person has the opportunity to experience the transformative power of reading. Thank you for your time.
Good morning. My name is Ginny Okawa, and I am one of the leaders of Indivisible Nye County Prickly Pears. I'm a lifelong reader and patron of public libraries. I'm deeply concerned about the growing attacks on our freedoms and those who stand to protect them. In particular, I'm extremely concerned about our local library here in Pahrump, where the chair of the library board has removed our library from the American Library Association, and he seems determined to remove and reclassify books, as Mr. Wade mentioned in his earlier comments. So I am in full support of AB 416 and urge you to vote yes to protect our classroom and public libraries and protect our freedom to read. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Tara Decados, T-A-R-A-D-E space Q-U-E-I-R-O-Z. I have 2 high school-age kids and am a steering committee member of Freedom to Read Nevada. I grew up as a library kid, and when I took my own kids to story time with the wonderful Washoe County librarians, I was delighted to find that kids' books have become much more diverse. My kids are mixed race, and one identifies as queer, and they have always brought home piles of library books. Several years ago, my husband and I realized that in some ways our kids know more about the world than we do, and it's because of all of the books they've read. For example, as some of their friends have come out as trans, they've instructed us about the correct use of their friends' pronouns. So when I learned that some of the precise books that have widened my kids' worldview were being challenged in Washoe County libraries, I started going to trustee meetings. The public comment I heard in support of book bans clarified what was motivating these challenges. I heard a lot of homophobic and transphobic hate speech packaged as an effort to protect children. And it's easy to connect the dots from this to national efforts to further marginalize queer people and people of color. The meeting where the trustees voted on the book challenges was a nail biter, and in the 11th hour, the challenges were rejected. However, I expect that more books will be challenged, and with trustee positions frequently turning over, I worry that a future challenge will be successful. My family has trusted our librarians since the days of toddler story time. My kids do not need to be protected from books. The only thing they might need protection from is bigots who want to erase them. With AB 416, you have the opportunity to ensure that all kids can continue to go to the library and find books that affirm their existence. Thank you.
If you have recently joined and would like to testify in support of Assembly Bill 416, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue.
Good morning to the committee. Erin Ketchum, ErinKetcham, for the record. I'm a constituent of Reno and a volunteer with Freedom to Read Nevada, and I am testifying in support of AB 416. I feel very strongly that all students have the right to read and learn free from scholarship or for censorship. Published material is an integral source of information for all students, and each family should be able to decide what books are appropriate for their children to read, but they have no place making that decision for other families. What is appropriate reading material for children is highly dependent on each child's comprehension levels, lived experiences, and family dynamics. However, all students have a First Amendment right to read and learn about history and viewpoints of all communities, including their own identity inside and outside of the classroom. In school, I was an advanced reader and often read books beyond what many families would consider as appropriate for my age level. However, that was not a decision for them to make. Many materials necessitated conversations about the topics and context of the books with my parents, teachers, and librarians. This access and exposure to many viewpoints, in turn, fostered conversations with those trusted adults that helped me better understand the complexities of our society and my positioning within those complexities. It is also, at its core, what stoked my love for civil service, drive to complete my higher education, and desire to actively support and mentor young members of my community. Like myself and many other curious new scholars before me, all young people deserve to be able to see themselves and the issues that impact them reflected in the books they're reading, and greatly benefit from having access to an inclusive education where students can freely learn about history, perspectives, and ideas from all communities. I urge the committee to support AB 416. Thank you for your time.
Good morning. My name is Janet Serial, JanetSerial. I am a resident of Washoe County, having attended the Washoe County School District. I am a avid lifelong reader, and I'm calling in support of AB 416. My love of reading began in elementary school, attending Glenn Duncan Elementary School in Northeast Reno, where I had access to a variety of books. It was there that I learned about the civil rights movement and those who fought for freedoms. I also have 4 daughters and a granddaughter, all of whom were born in Washoe County and raised here in northern Nevada. Again, I urge you to support and vote yes for AB 416. Thank you.
Hello, I come before you today to speak in support of AB 416. My name is Dr. Nicole Beer, NICHOLEBEER. And I am actually a victim of some of the things that 416 would provide comfort for. And that is, I have been docked by a sitting trustee of the CCSD Board of Trustees. I am a teacher librarian here in Clark County. And I have been called a pedophile. I've been called a groomer. I have had death threats and so on and so forth against my life. So this is something that might seem like hyperbole, and this kind of thing isn't happening. It's happened to me, and it's happened to other individuals in the library sphere. In fact, one group last night actually called into question Assembly Member Miller's fitness to hold office because she does not have children. This is happening. We need protection. It needs to be a felony. I support AB 416, obviously, because I think that book bans have no place in our community, and parents are the best poised to make those decisions for their children. Please give me the protection and comfort that I need to be able to sleep at night, knowing that I am safe and that people who would dox me and threaten my life would be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your
Vice Chair?
Yes.
There are no other callers in support.
Well, thank you. I was letting you know we weren't taking any more support calls. So perfect timing. We will move to testimony in opposition of Assembly Bill 416. Is there anyone in Carson City wishing to testify? Please remember to state and spell your name for the record. Remember that you have 2 minutes each. You may begin when you're ready.
Good morning, Vice Chair Marzola and members of the Assembly Judiciary. Paloma Guerrero, Paloma Guerrero, on behalf of the Clark County Public Defender's Office. Our opposition is specific and limited to Section 3, Subsection 4. We believe in the spirit of the bill. Books are extremely important. Libraries are one of the last safe places we have in our society. You can always catch us hanging out at the library in this building, and I see my library card as my greatest life hack. We agree with everything that was said about the importance and value of this bill. Our concern is just with the felony criminal penalty. Our thought is that a hefty civil penalty would be a better deterrent in this case, and also to add liability if they are representing an organization for that organization. Thank you.
Good morning, Angela Knott from the Washoe County Public Defender's Office.
I'm going to pause you for 1 second. If you can get up so others can come, thank you. I appreciate that. Go ahead.
I'll start over. Good morning, Angela Knott from the Washoe County Public Defender's Office, ANGELAKNOTT. Like my colleague from Clark County just stated, our only opposition is to Section 3, Subsection 4. We believe that you should never limit freedom of expression. Banning books can stifle innovation, social change, and personal growth that comes from questioning existing ideas and exploring new ones. However, the Category E felony we believe is unnecessary in this bill. There are already crimes on the books that can take care of these situations, the biggest one being coercion, and coercion is a Category B felony. We believe in adding to the crimes that are already on by doing the civil penalties and allowing for civil suits that not only go after the independent person who might have violated this act, but any kind of group or organization that is supporting these individuals. So by allowing and opening up civil suits, I think that would help deter the crimes that we're trying to prevent. Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Vice Chair, members of the committee. My name is Janine Hansen. I'm the state chairman of the Independent American Party. We feel this bill violates the spirit of the Constitution. It removes our elected officials, our school board, and the governing bodies of higher ed from the decision-making process. It removes parents, and it removes the community. It makes the librarian a virtual dictator unless someone has the money to hire an attorney and go to court. The U.S. Constitution in Article 4, Section 4 says the United States shall guarantee to every state of the Union a Republican form of government. In the Nevada Constitution in Article 1, Section 2, it states all political power is inherent in the people. Government is instituted for the protection, security, and benefit of the people. In NRS 126.036, it states, the liberty interest of a parent in the care, custody, and management of a parent's child is a fundamental right. In the U.S., parents have a fundamental right to make decisions concerning the care, custody, and control of their children as rooted in the 14th Amendment due process and affirmed by the U.S. Supreme Court. This right includes guiding their children's upbringing, education, and religious practices. We're very concerned that the process of our elected officials is removed unless we have the money to go to court and sue. I've often taken my grandchildren to the library in Elko, and I agree there are many important things in Elko, but I think communities, parents, our elected school board, and our elected members of higher education should be part of the process and not a librarian only. Thank you.
Good morning. And my name is Lynn Chapman, and I'm the State Vice President of Nevada Families for Freedom. This is a written statement before the U.S. House Committee on Education and Workforce. It's Combating Graphic Explicit Books in School Libraries by Nicole Solis, Senior Fellow at the Education Freedom Center. Quote, "It is important to identify the nature and scope of graphic and sexually explicit books in school libraries. This is not an occasional problem. On the contrary, the amount of sexually explicit books in school libraries is extensive and vast. The American College of Pediatrics warns that children suffer many negative effects due to modern society's exposure to and acceptance of pornography. These negative effects include mental disturbance and unrest for the young school-age child, including acting out in violent behavior because of its harmfulness to children. Pornography must never be used as a tool to teach children human sexuality." During the 2017 to 18 academic year, there were 13,799 reported incidents of sexual violence in public schools, a 43% increase from the year prior. There is no universal codified system to inform parents of graphic or explicit content in school library books. Other media, such as movies, radio, music, and the internet, have long-standing rating systems or restrictions that recognize the importance of protecting children from inappropriate content. The First Amendment allows schools to remove materials that are, quote, pervasively vulgar or not educationally unsuitable, unquote, under Board of Education versus PICO. No amount of diversity sanitized sexually explicit content for children's eyes, and the American Library Association should be held accountable for deceiving the public at the expense of children. These are some of the complaints that parents and taxpayers have with their libraries. They do belong to the people. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Joy Trushenski, Trushenski. There was an article on Channel 8 News Now Investigates, and it says the heading is, "I don't like your dick. Las Vegas parents sue school district over daughter's pornographic assignment." A 15-year-old girl, a student at Clark County School, was given an assignment that was pornographic. In fact, too pornographic to be described at a school board meeting. I will give just the excerpt, the last excerpt of it, and it's a young woman telling her ex-boyfriend. She says, "I don't love you. It's not you. It's just," looks down, "your dick. I don't like your dick or any dick in this case. I cheated, Joe." And then she goes on to say that I am a blanking lesbian. I'm not going to say the word. I don't like it. "I never love you or any man or any blanking dick. I hope you find a nice straight girl because that's not me, and I'm tired of pretending that it is." We are talking here about pornographic material being allowed, having our children allowed access to, and that is what I'm against. This is so morally reprehensible, and you should be ashamed of yourself for allowing that kind of stuff.
You are more than welcome to provide testimony, but I do not want you saying any disparaging things about this committee. And so if you would like to finish, you are more than welcome.
Okay, I apologize. Parents, not government officials, have the right to dictate what their children are taught. This bill is morally offensive and unacceptable. You should be concentrating on proper education of our children and not the sexualization of our children. Thank you for your time.
And thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else wishing to give opposition in Carson City? I don't see any. Is there anyone wishing to testify in opposition of Assembly Bill 416 in Las Vegas? Please remember to state and spell your name for the record. You may begin when you're ready.
Good morning. My name is Lorena Biasotti, Lorena Biassotti. When I learned about this bill yesterday, I immediately arranged for my kids to be taken to school this morning. And as I drove over here, I couldn't shake a disturbing thought. While we're busy getting our kids ready, preparing their clothes, packing their lunches, rushing them to school on time, someone in our state capitol is actively working to undermine us. We're facing an epidemic of sexual impropriety in our schools, and this is your response? At a time when we should be taking steps to rebuild trust with parents who have fled public schools in droves, you instead chose to erode the love and authority we have over our children. Let's be clear, you're not stopping book bans. You're obstructing parents from removing obscene books like Genderqueer that depict teenage oral sex from school libraries and charge them with felonies. Has it occurred to you that maybe this is the reason for escalating tensions? These are not coordinated attacks. These are parents who are worried. Are concerned parents criminals to you? Do you even realize what it's like to raise a child in a world where we must constantly guard them against over-sexualized exposure? You do not. We speculate about the drop in public school enrollment, but isn't it telling that a Christian and other private schools are seeing growth? Why do you think that is? Perhaps it's because their libraries don't stock vile materials and parents aren't threatened with felony charges for trying to remove them. The government was not meant to be weaponized against its citizens. Parents are not going to wait to go to court as felons. They're going to be pulling their kids out of public schools. Now, speaking to you as an elected official, of course, speaking for myself, 72,000 Nevada citizens place their trust in me to make decisions on behalf of students of Clark County because of issues like these. What an outrageous abuse of power for you to threaten to punish even trustees with a felony for curating library books. You're hurting our schools. I'm calling on Governor Lombardo to crush this affront to the citizens of Nevada. And I'm urging every resident of Assembly District 5 to vote.
Ma'am, if you can please wrap up your testimony, your time is up.
He has betrayed the trust in parents.
Thank you for your testimony. The next person may begin.
A big ditto on that opposition. I oppose AB 416. My name is Leslie Quinn. The First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution protects the 5 fundamental freedoms of the U.S. citizens: the freedom of religion, speech, press, assembly, and the right to petition the government. I've taught children to read for many years. AB 416 isn't about children having freedoms, but in desensitizing their innocence. AB 416 marginalizes children's innocence through the continued allowance of pervasively vulgar literature in schools. Damaging a children's innocence should not be the target, no matter what their sexuality is. Are we as adults not here to protect children, to be a shield to them from harm? Where is the common sense in encouraging children in literature that is pervasively vulgar and not reading that? As adults, we are here to guide our children in that which is true and honorable. When they are older, 18 and above, they can choose their own way. AB 416 is a legal doorway for access to pervasively vulgar literature, no matter what the age of appropriateness is for a child. It will ultimately silence parents from standing up for their children regarding educational material their tax dollars are paying for. It is a doorway for children to be okay with being sex trafficked. Also, the push for those fighting against pervasively vulgar books being a Category E felony, which would be imprisonment for up to 15 years. That's pretty excessive. Sadly, the First Amendment is not democratically supported when constituents or parents speak up in defense of their children. Those in public office, whether CCSD or elsewhere, should remember that they are in office because your constituents allegedly voted you in to be a voice for them, not to represent only a specific sect, group, or agenda. Pervasive vulgarity has no place in a child's learning at a public school or school at all. Vote no and oppose AB 416. Thank you.
Good morning, all of Nevada. My name is Yadasha Jones, Yadusha Jones. I'm a native of Clark County School District, and I'm the chairwoman of Moms for Liberty. And I'm speaking as a mother of CCSD children, an aunt of over 20 nieces and nephews inside of CCSD. As a Black woman, I find it very offensive that people use what I look like as an excuse to suppress my voice and push AB 416 for that reason. I have been pushed, threatened, and spit at because I want to have a voice for my children. AB 416 is a troubling proposal. It takes away parents' freedom of speech for their children. This legislation undermines every parent committed to our children's education. It's concerning Nevada legislature requires judicial approval to review a library book, suggesting 300,000 CCSD students don't need mothers, fathers, or guardians with oversight. This bill opposes potential misuse, vague definitions, and felony threats, Category E penalties if we challenge unrestricted shelves too firmly. But I could be robbed for less than $1,200 and they get a misdemeanor. This isn't about banning books or targeting identities. What I look like should not be an excuse. It's about securing parental authority. Films received PG-13 ratings for mild language. Music carries explicit labels for similar reasons. I don't care what anyone identifies as or look like. As a taxpayer, I should have a say as to what my children have access to without having to log in. AB 416, however, permits no restrictions unless a court rules the content I've seen. A process too low to protect our kids effectively. Over 400 Washoe County parents demanded library accountability. Clark County requires the same standard. I can't stand by while officials say, trust us. My children deserve a system that respects families, not obscure legal barriers.
Ma'am, your time is up. If you can please close out your statement.
Teachers teach, admins provide parent moderated support. Parents lead and protect. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else in Las Vegas wishing to testify in opposition? You may begin when you're ready.
My name is Kelly Quinn, Kellyquinn, and NRS 201 does define what obscenity is, as well as exhibition and sale of obscene materials to minors. Both of those sections also have the exemption clauses for schools, universities, libraries, and museums. So the schools have historically been pushing these books and obscene materials, pornography, into the school system and the libraries. And I've shown up and testified at the school board hearings as well, and pointing out that I work in a prison system, the state prison system, and pornography is allowed in a male prison. It just can't have, there's 4 basic restrictions. Can't have penetration of any kind, can't have children in suggestive poses, gang materials, and gun materials. So the books that have already been named here wouldn't even be allowed in a men's prison, but yet we're pushing it into the school system. And we're vilifying the trustees and the parents who might show up and make an issue of that. One of the things with this bill, what problem does it truly solve? And it's solving the problem of a parent showing up and testifying to a school board meeting that they're upset about their children being provided pornographic materials. So with that, we need to oppose this bill. And the First Amendment does give the freedom of speech. However, it also gives the freedom of assembly and the freedom to petition our government for redress. So we can't restrict parents from showing up to these meetings and board hearings to oppose and potentially be looking at a Category E felony for it. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else in Las Vegas wishing to testify in opposition? I don't see anyone broadcast. Is there anyone on the line?
You would like to testify in opposition to Assembly Bill 416. Please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Again, if you would like to testify in opposition to Assembly Bill 416, please press star 9 now.
Good morning, everyone. CYRUS, HOJJATY. I do respect the fact that the First Amendment is trying to be protected. However, I will echo the comments made by the Defender's Office. Please remove the felony charge. My concern is also fairness. If I wanted to, let's say, offer a book that may be considered hate speech or racist, is that acceptable? You know, because many argue we have a double standard in our culture. So I'm just curious about fairness and if other voices are accepted. But other than that, I will thank you so much for my time and best of luck. Yield.
Good morning, Chair and committee members. My name is Lydia Dominguez, Dominguez. I was elected and hold the office of Clark County School District Trustee, but I am calling today in strong opposition as a mother for this bill 416. It would tie the hands of school board members, trustees, charter schools, and educators. It's making it clearly impossible to remove inappropriate and sexually explicit content from school libraries unless a court formally deems it obscene. This legal threshold is incredibly high and not designed for the day-to-day decisions of schools and must protect children. Let me be clear, the bill doesn't empower students. It disempowers parents, local school boards, and the very educators we trust with our children every day. We already have laws on the books like NRS 201. It makes it illegal to distribute obscene materials to minors. This bill would make it harder, not easier, to follow the laws in our schools. I want to, there was a previous person, Kelly Quinn, that just mentioned that we have books that are in our libraries that are not allowed in men's prisons because they are so obscene. This is really concerning. And what's more concerning, this bill would penalize trustees, teachers, and concerned citizens for trying to limit access to the content that they believe is harmful. This is not protecting freedom of speech. This is silencing local voices and putting ideology over the well-being of students. Parents struggle trying to protect their kids from pornographic materials, and we should not penalize them by having to file a lawsuit to protect their kids from this content in school libraries. This is why we were elected to school boards. Parents, community members have trusted trustees into these positions, and the decisions should be in partnership with the community, with the school boards. I urge this body to reject this dangerous overreach and protect local control, protect our kids. Thank you.
Caller, you are unmuted and may begin.
My name is Karen England with Take Back the Classroom. I'm representing thousands of Nevadans, and we oppose AB 416. It's unconstitutional under Island Trees versus PICO. And often in Nevada, the chair will read the consequences of false testimony. And I don't think I heard this in the beginning, but I hope it applies to this hearing, because the librarian testifying, as well as everyone else, should know that public schools in Nevada are exempt from obscenity laws. So I don't know why everyone there is talking about obscenity laws in the Miller test and not PICO. This is a clear attempt to silence parents. And I'm going to read from one of the books that is in several high schools in your state, that this is what parents are upset about. Last night, I rented a movie called Inside Lydia's Ass, and while on 2 halcyons and, in fact, sipping a Diet Pepsi, I watched Lydia, a totally tan, bleached blonde hard body with a perfect ass and great full tits, while on all fours, gave head to this guy with a huge cock while under gorgeous blonde little hard body and a perfectly trimmed blonde pussy, knelt behind Lydia, and after eating her ass out and sucking her cunt, started to push a long greased silver vibrator into Lydia's ass. Now that is what parents are upset about. That is pervasively vulgar. Under PICO, the only people that get to decide what gets removed from a library happen to be the administration and school boards. Those who groom and sexualize our children with our taxpayer dollars, they're the ones on the wrong side of history. We agree. TakeBackTheClassroom.com agrees that under PICO, you can't remove things because of political viewpoint, and no one is trying to do that. Please protect minors from these sexually explicit materials and stop using fundraising or taxpayer dollars in order to utilize our kids. If you vote for this bill, you are voting for Lydia and her cunt and everything.
Thank
that
you
goes
so
in
much
there
for your
from the
testimony.
top.
Your time is broadcast. Is there anyone else on the line?
Good morning, committee. This is Bruce Parks, B-R-U-C-P-A-R-K-S. Ditto all the other testimony in opposition. This bill is flagrant government overreach, taking away parents' rights, and forcing members of the community to use the court system and incur those expenses when this should be in the hands of the community. It is an obvious attempt to protect those that would sexualize and groom our children into a lifetime of struggle with what they are exposed to in our libraries. One of the books that was mentioned earlier actually contains a graphic depiction of an act of pedophilia. Genderqueer is the name of the book. Fortunately, in Washoe County, that book is not in our school libraries, but it is in our public libraries. The only way that book could be in our public libraries is because the collections manager purchased it for our public libraries. These are the kinds of things that we, the community, and we as parents and grandparents are trying to protect our kids from. This is not about book banning and censorship. It's about having actual standards and making sure that our children are protected. Thank you.
Caller, you are unmuted and may begin.
Hello, my name is Kendra Evans, and I sincerely request you oppose Assembly Bill 416. You may remember me as the mom who tried to read her 15-year-old daughter's assignment at a school board meeting in Las Vegas, but was shut down by the trustees. My story and the video of it went viral. What you may not know is that a lot happened before I ever went to that meeting. I found a monologue by accident one day. It was horrible and it was pornographic. My daughter had been required to read it, memorize it, and then perform it in front of her class. I told her it was completely inappropriate, but she argued with me and said, "No, Mom, it was fine because her teacher told her it was okay." I met with a member of the administration, the teacher, the counselor, and even the CCSD police. They blamed my daughter for reading it, stating that she could have said no or should have said no. Never had I ever told any of my kids it's okay to go to school and tell your teacher no if they don't like an argument. They don't like an assignment. It was absurd to me that the school tried to blame my child for not saying no to her teacher. This brings me to Assembly Bill 416. This is a bad bill aimed entirely at villainizing parents and protecting government regulators, when all we want to do is just protect our kids from ever having to read something like my daughter had to read that day. While it wasn't a book, there are books like this, and I don't want to see another child have to go through what my daughter had to go through, reading it, memorizing it, have to portray it in a classroom. She was too young to understand how wrong it was. And I have seen firsthand how hard it is to resist inappropriate material that is promoted in the classroom. If I was told my daughter should have told her teacher no, then it feels like a wrongful escalation of the law to now require parents to petition a court to get sexually inappropriate material removed. This is a great burden to parents and a great protection.
Ma'am,
for
can you
school
please
boards.
wrap up your testimony? Your
Yes, ma'am.
time is ending.
Yes, ma'am. Please oppose this bill. Books are not being banned, but children are being groomed.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time, Kendra.
Broadcast, is there anyone else on the line?
Yes, good morning. My name is Bruce Foster, Brucefoster. I am a grandfather, 8 elementary school children, and I absolutely oppose this bill, AB 416, and recognizing that it is completely supported by the American Library Association, in which the last president was Emily Drabinski, an avowed Marxist and a lesbian, as well as Planned Parenthood. And my question that we all have to ask ourselves, do we wish to protect our children's innocence? My word. And I wish to bring forth a book that I've read also with the Washoe County Library System, as well as the Washoe County School District, which I was both gavelled down. All Boys Aren't Blue. It's available at Galena High School, Hug High School, North Valleys High School, and Reno High School. On page 266, it states in this book, and we have to ask ourselves, is this educational? As we kissed, he began unzipping my pants. It was clear to me in this moment that he wasn't new to this. He reached his hand down and pulled out my dick. He quickly went to giving me head. I just sat back and enjoyed it, as I could tell he was too. He was also definitely experienced in what he was doing because he went to work quite confidently. He then came up and asked me if I wanted to try on him. I said, sure. I began, he said, watch your teeth. I didn't want to let him know I was inexperienced. So I slowed down and took my time and luckily got into a good rhythm. He didn't know I was a virgin.
Sir, can you please wrap up your testimony? Your time is up.
Now, my finish, I will just absolutely oppose this bill as it takes away the innocence of our children, and I'm concerned for my grandchildren. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And that is our 30 minutes for opposition. We will move to testimony in neutral. Is there anyone here in Carson City wishing to testify in neutral? I don't see anyone. Is there anyone in Las Vegas wishing to testify in neutral? Broadcast, is there anyone on the line?
If you would like to testify in neutral for Assembly Bill 416, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Again, if you would like to testify in neutral for Assembly Bill 416, please press star 9 now. Caller with the last 3 digits, 085, please press star 6 to unmute your phone. Caller with the last 3 digits, 085, please press star 6 to unmute your phone. You may begin.
Hi, my name is Kimberly Johnston-Linsday, Linsday. The support got a lot more time than the opposition, so I wanted to take this time to say I strongly oppose.
No, ma'am. The support did not get a lot more time. Everyone got 30 minutes. 30 minutes in support, 30 minutes in opposition, and 30 minutes in neutral. Opposition has closed. You are more than welcome to submit your opposition testimony in writing. We are now in neutral. Broadcast, is there anyone else on the line wishing to testify in neutral?
You may begin.
Hello, my name is Elena Barbera, Elena Barbera. I would just like to ask that you consider the Island Trees versus Pico law from 1982, as you're moving forward with this bill. And I also wanted to just do a reading.
Ma'am, are you testifying in neutral of Assembly Bill 416?
Yes, I am. I'm testifying in neutral, and I'm just providing some more information for everyone's consideration. And I would like to take into consideration, one of the books in question that has been found in 22 schools so far, high schools and middle schools across the state. And I think it's important that people have an idea of
what we're really talking about. This is a book called The Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah Moss, and it says, his tongue swept my mouth again in time to the finger that he slipped inside of me.
So I do not
My
believe
hips
your testimony
undulated,
is
demanding
neutral
more.
testimony.
Well, I
Again,
don't think that's really for you to say. I've
it
already
is.
stated that I'm neutral,
I am the
but I
committee
think you're
vice
cutting
chair,
off-
and it is. Broadcast, is there anyone else on the line?
My name is Heather Kolodny, Kolodny. As a former special ed teacher, as a mother of 3 sons, one whom is proudly gay, I am gravely concerned about this bill and how it would discourage.
Ma'am, are you calling to give neutral testimony to Assembly Bill 416?
Asking that the bill could be fixed and remedied. May I continue?
Are you testifying in neutral?
As a teacher, former teacher, I know how important libraries are. As a teacher, I know how essential information is. However, libraries now have become very visually stimulating. You walk in and you know what the book of the month is about. I believe that the bill can be remedied if community, elected officials, and a private organization isn't the sole judge of what is appropriate. That's the issue. There's strong feelings on both sides, and passing this bill is a grave concern as it is written. So yes, I'm in solidarity with on action, information accessible, but I'm also in solidarity with people who are gravely concerned about their voices and their judgment of their community being ignored. And why would this association of librarians as authority? I have not heard that addressed.
Thank you for your neutral testimony. Broadcast, is there anyone else on the line?
Vice Chair, there are no other callers wishing to testify in neutral at this time.
Thank you. Chair Miller, would you like to give any closing remarks?
Thank you, Vice Chair, for the opportunity to return and make a few closing remarks. First, I would like to say that on February 21st, in this very committee, we heard a bill, Assembly Bill 197. And what was fantastic about that bill was that the people that testified in support of that bill, from both the extreme left to the extreme right to the middle and everybody in between, all came and testified in support of that bill because of the First Amendment and our First Amendment right protecting us and enabling us to donate and participate in any political or religious or nonprofit organization that we choose. What's unsettling is that, just so you know, I did pull that list that day of those who testified in support. And interesting enough, there are people that testified in support of that bill based on the First Amendment who actually testified in opposition today. Now, it is actually the same First Amendment. It's the same First Amendment that gives people the right to oppose this bill. It's the same First Amendment that gave certain individuals the right to read from alleged books, as well as to come here at this very table and state the slang word for penis multiple times, and yet avoiding saying other words because they may have deemed that word inappropriate or offensive as opposed to others. I work in a school that has a policy that even if a student says or writes or does something wrong with any type of word, a racial slur, profanity, anything, even I as the teacher cannot say that word out loud while reporting it. The thought of what words can and cannot be said publicly, there are certain words we all agree shouldn't be said, and what words can and cannot be written are the same decisions based on what books should and should not be shelved. There is a reason why it is going to the courts based on Supreme Court cases. As you hear in the testimony we heard today, there were two school board members on opposite sides of the issue. So imagine the policy that comes from that school district that says that each school can have a few parents, a few teachers, an admin, and make these decisions. Imagine if which school board trustee you're going to get sitting at that table. And that's where the inconsistencies come, because the courts are best equipped to determine what is determined offensive and what should be protected for the greater good of our entire community. I would also like to say that while there was opposition to a penalty E felony, this is the same First Amendment that countless people have died for. So I don't think that a Category E felony charge comes anywhere close to the already countless people who have died to uphold, establish, and protect this First Amendment. As with inconsistencies, we've heard a lot about obscenity, 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 obscenity. Let me tell you how I was raised, because I wasn't raised just with my mother monitoring the books I read. It included the video games I played, the board games I played, the movies and television shows I watched, even including the music I was allowed to listen to. But she made those decisions for me and my sisters. She didn't try to make those decisions for anyone else in the community, anyone else in the city or state. And while I grew up, and I'll date myself here, but I wasn't allowed to watch Bewitched or The Smurfs. I wasn't allowed to play Dungeons and Dragons because my mother believed that that led you down a path to evil and wickedness. Nothing with wizards, genies, witches, anything like that. So currently, when I'm in the classroom, the books that make me cringe because of my personal opinions and my personal convictions, well, I would rip all the Harry Potter books off the shelves. And yet that's a book that most people deem appropriate and teachers even use in their curriculum as reading. I see kids reading books about vampires all the time. And the same thing, I am concerned about violence and other subjects that come into play. But again, it is not my position to choose or restrict any student or any other Nevadan on what they can and cannot read. And I'm sure you all would appreciate the fact that I am not given, nor is my mother given, the right to go in and restrict these books off of the shelf. It is, of course, the same First Amendment right, the same one that protects me, the same one that protects everyone that testified today, the same ones that protect my students. My students, when they're in their classroom and they have finished their work and have free time to read what they want, or they can choose a book on what they want to use as their sources for their papers, and those same kids that can sit quietly and read the Bible or read Harry Potter, it is the same First Amendment. And so with that, I thank you, committee, for listening, and I thank everyone that participated today in this process. And with that, I just again ask your support for Assembly Bill 416. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, for your final remarks. I will now close the hearing on Assembly Bill 416. 1 minute recess.
All right, folks, we'll come back into order. The next item on our agenda today is we have a work session with a number of bills. So I'm going to turn it over to our policy analyst who will take us through the bills and the amendments.
Thank you, Chair Miller. For the record, Cesar Melgarejo, Committee Policy Analyst, and I would note that as nonpartisan staff, I can neither support nor oppose any of the measures that come before this committee. First bill is Assembly Bill 159, which is sponsored by Assembly Member Hardy, and it was heard by this committee on March 7, 2025. Assembly Bill 159 establishes the Hope Card program for applicants who have been granted an extended order for protection against domestic violence. Assembly Member Hardy did submit an amendment that's attached to this document, which is to amend subsection 4C, subparagraph 4 of section 1 to provide additional information the Office of the Attorney General may include in the Hope Card. And Chair Miller, that's all the amendments.
Thank you. Members, any questions? Not seeing any, I will take a motion to amend it do pass. I have a motion from Vice Chair Marzola. Do I have a second? I have a second from Assembly Member Hanson. With that, any additional questions or comments? Not seeing any. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? And the motion passes unanimously. I will assign that floor statement to Assembly Member Hardy. Next, please.
Thank you, Chair Miller. For the record, Cesar Margarejo, Committee Policy Analyst. The next bill is Assembly Bill 201, which is sponsored by Assembly Member Roth, and it was heard by this committee on March 26, 2025. Assembly Bill 201 expands the circumstances under which a summary eviction is sealed automatically. And there is an amendment submitted by Jonathan Norman, Policy Director of the Nevada Coalition of Legal Service Providers, to amend Section 1 of the bill to revise eviction case sealing procedures, including requiring landlords to respond to tenant motions within 7 judicial days, clarifying the scope of sealed records, mandating courts to state the basis for decisions, and introducing automatic sealing for eviction cases involving unjustified lockouts. And Chair Miller, that's all the amendment.
Thank you. Any questions? Not seeing any, I will entertain a motion to amend and do pass. I have a motion from Vice Chair Marzola. Do I have a second? I have a second from Assembly Member Gonzalez. Any additional questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Nay. Nay. Okay, so I see hands up for Assembly Member Cole is in the nay position, Assembly Member Urick, Hanson, Gray, and Hardy. And with that, the motion passes. I will assign the floor statement to Assembly Member Roth. Thank you, Chair. You're welcome. Next bill, please.
For the record, Cesar Margarejo, Committee Policy Analyst. Assembly Bill 209 is the next bill in the work session. This bill is sponsored by Assembly Member Orentlicker and was heard on March 14, 2025. Assembly Bill 209 provides immunity from criminal liability for engaging in prostitution or committing certain acts while engaged in prostitution. Assemblymember Orentlicker did submit an amendment, which is to amend Section 3 to remove provisions granting immunity from criminal liability for various crimes committed while engaging in prostitution when a prostitute was the victim or witness to other serious crimes. Instead, this amendment would limit immunity solely to the crime of prostitution or solicitation of prostitution when a prostitute seeks medical attention. Chair Miller, that's all the amendments.
Thank you. Members, are there any questions? Not seeing any, I will take a motion to amend and do pass. I have a motion from Vice Chair Marzola. Do I have a second? I have a second from Assembly Member Dahlia. With that, any additional questions or concerns? Not seeing any, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Nay. Okay, so I have a nay from Assembly Member Hardy, Gray, Cole, Urick, and Hanson. With that, the motion does pass, and I will assign that floor statement to Assembly Member Orentlicker. Thank you. You're welcome.
Thank you, Chair Miller. For the record, Cesar Margarejo, Committee Policy Analyst. Next bill is Assembly Bill 291. This bill is sponsored by Assembly Members Jackson, Moore, Roth, and Gonzalez et al., and it was heard on March 5th, 2025. This bill revises provisions relating to records of criminal history. Assemblymember Jackson did submit an amendment which is attached to this document, which is to delete Section 1 of the bill pertaining to the sealing of certain records relating to arrests. And Chair Miller, that's all the amendments.
Thank you. Any questions, members? Not seeing any, I will entertain a motion to amend and do pass. I have a motion from Vice Chair Marzola. Any, do I have a second? Second. I have a second. Is that Assemblymember Gonzalez? Okay. And with that, any additional questions or comments? Not seeing any. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? The nay hands are Assemblymember Urick, Cole, Hanson, Gray, and Hardy. And with that, the motion passes, and I will assign that floor statement to Assemblymember Jackson. Next bill.
Thank you, Chair Miller. For the record, Cesar Margarejo, Committee Policy Analyst. The next bill on our work session is Assembly Bill 320, which is sponsored by Assemblymember Jackson and revises provisions related to criminal justice. Assemblymember Jackson, this submitted amendment, which is to replace Section 1 with a legislative declaration promoting access to justice and prohibiting penalties for courtroom attire, deleting bail-related provisions in Sections 2 through 4, and amending Section 5 to authorize rather than require a pilot employment program. And Chair Miller, that's all the amendments.
Thank you. Members, any questions? Not seeing any, I will take a motion to amend and do pass. I have a motion from Vice Chair Marzola. Do I have a second? I will take a second from Assemblymember Cole. Any additional questions or comments? Not seeing any. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? I have one nay from Assemblymember Gray. And with that, the motion passes, and I will assign that floor statement to Assemblymember Jackson. And with that, just so members know, we are rolling AB 321 and moving on to AB 460 for now.
Thank you, Chair Miller. For the record, Cesar Margarejo, Committee Policy Analyst. Our next bill is Assembly Bill 460, which is sponsored by Assemblymember Gonzalez and Senator Doñate. This bill was heard on March 20, 2025. This bill establishes within the Office of Secretary of State a form for parents or guardians to nominate a guardian or a minor, which may be filed in the Nevada lockbox. There is an amendment proposed by Assemblymember Gonzalez, which is to remove provisions with NRS authorizing fees for the Nevada lockbox, deleting expanded eligibility for supportive assistance for guardians for children separated due to immigration orders, and delete provisions appropriating funding for the Trauma Recovery Grant Project. And Chair Miller, that's all the amendments.
Thank you so much. Are there any questions, members? Not seeing any, I will entertain a motion to amend and do pass. So moved. I have a motion from Vice Chair Marzola. Do I have a second? I'll take the second from Assembly Member LaRue Hatch. Any additional questions or comments? Not seeing any. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? And the motion passes unanimously. Does anyone want this floor statement? Assemblymember Gonzalez. Okay, with that, next bill, please.
You're welcome. Thank you, Chair Miller. For the record, Cesar Margarejo, Committee Policy Analyst. Our next bill is Assembly Bill 480, which is sponsored by Assembly Members Yeager, Monroe Moreno, Jauregui, and Considine et al., and it was heard on March 28, 2025. Assembly Bill 480 adopts the disparate impact standard for Nevada fair housing law. And there is an amendment submitted by Assemblymember Yeager to replace the term disparate impact with discriminatory effect, add various Assembly members of this committee as co-sponsors, and make the bill effective upon passage and approval. And the change in terms would be for subsection 3 of section 1. And Chair Miller, that's all the amendments.
Thank you. Members, any questions? Not seeing any, I will entertain a motion to amend and do pass. I have a motion from Vice Chair Marzola. Do I have a second? Second. I'll take a second from Assemblymember Nadeem. Any additional questions or comments? Not seeing any. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Nay. Okay, I have a nay from Assemblymember Hardy, Gray, Cole, Urick, and Hansen. And with that, the motion passes. I will assign that floor statement to Assemblymember Nadeem. You're welcome. With that, that concludes our work session for today. Our final item on the agenda will be public comment. Just a reminder that you will have 2 minutes to speak. Please state your name and spell it so we have it accurate for the record. And also that public comment is not to make any remarks on the bills that were heard that day, but to make a comment about anything else that's under the purview of this committee. And with that, we will start here in Carson City. Is there anyone wishing to make public comment? Not seeing anyone? I don't see anyone in Las Vegas. Broadcasting, will you open the line?
Chair, the public line is open and working. There are no callers at this time.
Thank you so much. And then with that, I will go ahead and conclude public comment, and I will adjourn for today, and I will see you all back tomorrow at... Okay, it's going to get better, I promise. Tomorrow's 8 a.m. though, okay? Just, it will get better, but tomorrow's 8 a.m. Thank you so much.